And happy Monday evening, all you crazy Buckeye fans out there who tune in each and every single day to the OHIO podcast. We're so glad you do. And to all of you who also download the OHIO podcast and whatever streaming service you're using to listen to the audio version of the podcast, thank you so much for doing that as well. Hey guys, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you're giving us a 5-star review. Share the show with all your friends and family. Let's continue to grow our community here at the OHIO podcast. And one of the best and easiest ways to do that is by joining us on Patreon, where right now we have our OHIO podcast NCAA Bracket Challenge. That's right. It's open to all members on Patreon, whether you're a paying member or you just joined up for the free service. You too can participate in our NCAA Bracket Challenge. Winner gets a free 1-year subscription to Patreon, paid in full. You don't have to pay a dime. So if you're one of those people that says, I love you, I ain't paying for you, guess what? You could go over there, fill out a bracket, show that you know more about college basketball than anybody else, and get it for absolutely free on us. So go on over to Patreon. The link is in the description below. There's a tutorial over there. I just did a tutorial showing you exactly how to sign up, what to do. I even showed you my terrible picks so that you can all laugh at on the tutorial. And we want to invite you to come and be a part of that great game with us over on Patreon. Joining us this evening, we have our special guest, good friend of the show, Zach Guggenheim. Good to have him from the Big Ten Huddle and from the home team. You all know him. You all love him. He's the defensive back. It's Knoxville Nate. We'll start with you first, Nate. Tell everybody who you are and where they can find you.
Yes, sir. I am Knoxville Nate. Happy to be back after a week off down in Florida. Missed you guys terribly. Happy to see you once again. And please go to X at NMSTN for you and follow me. Tell me what I've done wrong and how I've wronged you and your family.
Zach, tell everybody who you are and where they can find you, brother.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I'm fairly unfindable on social right now, but you can definitely find me at the Big Ten Huddle. Been the co-host over there for about 2 years now. Me and John Rhodes, JR, as many people here affectionately know him as. But we go live every Sunday and Tuesday. Make sure to check us out on YouTube as well as on the Believe Network on podcast.
There you go. Good to have you. I wondered why I couldn't find you on X, buddy. I was like, where did I go? I know I messaged you somewhere. Now we know. We'll just go find you over on YouTube with JR over at the Big Ten Huddle. Hey, everybody. Of course, you all know me. I'm the Podfather, a.k.a. Buckeye Boggs, a.k.a. Eric, where you can find me on X over at the OHIO Pod, arguing with Michigan fans on a daily, and on our Facebook channel or page as well at the OHIO podcast, where again you will find me putting Michigan people in their place on a daily basis. It's one of my favorite things to do, is to show them that they weren't smart enough to even get in at Michigan, and their takes are terrible, and their English is also really, really bad. Grammar, folks, grammar. Anyways, here we go. Let's just start with them tonight, shall we? Let's try to get Zach in as much trouble as we possibly can for joining the OHIO podcast. Zach, I set you up. No, I'm kidding. No, this is a serious conversation. I actually got some thoughts on this. We're going to start the show off tonight by sharing an audio clip from a recent interview that was done with Michigan's new head coach, Kyle Whittingham. And the question is asked, basically, have you got an education yet about the rivalry? And his answer to me, if I'm a Michigan fan, is very shallow. It's very hollow. I can't wait to get everybody's opinions tonight. So we're going to play this audio clip for you, and then we're going to dive into it. Here's the question. Does Kyle Whittingham truly understand this rivalry yet? Here we go.
All right, Coach. So, is there a class there at Ann Arbor where you had to go through. I'm sure it was part of the requirements that you had to take a class no on the hatred for the guys down south at Ohio State. Now, again, you would BYU, so you kind of understand that a little bit there as well coming into this. But the intensity of that rivalry, are you getting a true understanding of what that thing is?
Absolutely, I'm getting a flavor for that, and you're right. We were in a pretty intense rivalry in the state of Utah, but this appears to be a whole different level, and so I'm excited about it. And we got a bunch of football to play before we get to that game, obviously, but certainly everyone knows how many days away we are from that game and how important it is.
Got a taste of it.
Mm.
I wonder how he got a taste of it. Probably jumped on social media one night and was like, "What the heck?" Here's the thing. He was a part of the Holy War, BYU, Utah, in-state rivalry, comparable to Michigan State, I would say. Nowhere close to Ohio State, Michigan. Not even in the same stratosphere as Ohio State, Michigan. And he kind of admits that, but he says he has a taste of it, and he chuckles. Urban Meyer never chuckled. Ryan Day certainly ain't chuckling about it lately after suffering those losses and comparing it to basically the worst thing that's happened in his life since, some of the tragedies he's had to endure in his life with his family. Zach, does he understand this rivalry?
So when he says he got a taste of it, the image that comes into my mind is he's like at a dinner party and the hors d'oeuvres have been like the people with the little finger foods and the trays. And he's like, "Oh yeah, like I've had one of those," but he has not had the main course, certainly hasn't had cake. He's just had a little bit of hors d'oeuvres. No, he does not understand the rivalry. And to be fair, I wouldn't expect him to have a handle on the rivalry yet. Heck, I don't think Ryan Day for the first couple years had a handle on what this rivalry was. He just knew that Urban never lost. So, but I think he understands what rivalries are for sure. He was 11-6 against BYU in the Holy War. So, do I think he understands rivalries? Yes. And do I think that he probably has a little bit of insanity in him because he's an Urban disciple? Yes. So I think that he has gotten a taste from being up there. I certainly don't think he's a coach to be trifled with. But if he's saying, yes, I understand this rivalry, heck no, you don't.
Nader.
Yeah, I mean, Utah, BYU is a big deal out there. It's a big deal between people from Utah. It's a big deal from Utah fans and BYU fans. But is it a national thing? Not really. How many times was Utah versus BYU deciding who played for the national championship? How many times was Utah versus BYU the most highly watched, highest rated football game in the season? Not many times that I can recall, if ever. And acting like they went out and found this guy just to come run their program and beat Ohio State is so ridiculous to me. I mean, the only reason this guy is their coach is because we know why. Sharon Moore went bonkers and had a whole lot of things going on, and they got arrested, and then they had to fire him, and then they went out and were like, who the heck can we get? And all those things considered, as we talked about on the show the week that happened, I was impressed that they were able to get him. But do I think he's going to come in and turn this rivalry upside down? I do not. And I certainly don't think he knows what it's about, considering he's never once been a part of it. He never was an assistant coach at Michigan before. He was never an assistant coach at Ohio State in his life. So how he can sit here and tell me that he knows what this is, I don't know. I certainly do. I remember 1995 when I was 13 years old crying because Tim Biatapatuka hadn't been tackled in like 40 minutes of play. and I'll never forget it. And my grandma was crying, and that's what this rivalry is about. And he certainly doesn't know anything about it just yet. Is this guy a decent football coach? Yeah. Do I think he knows that he has to win that game? Yeah. But he won't know what it's about until he actually is a part of it for the first time in his life.
Listen, this rivalry will make Saints turn to sinners for a day and have to go to the altar on Sunday, the next day. This rivalry will take people who have never been arrested, probably maybe end up in the clinker on Saturday night, based off what happens here. It makes people who otherwise would never say anything on social media get in fights on a daily on social media. This rivalry, and it's like Urban Meyer said, how do you show your rival respect? You work it every single day. Every single day. It's not something that you can just look at and say it's just another game on the schedule. It's not. It'll never be just another game on the schedule. It's the game on the schedule. And whether you go into that game 11-0 or you go into that game 5-6 playing for an opportunity to just go to a bowl game, it means everything for bragging rights for 365 days. And just the taste that he is getting is from us Ohio State fans shoving things that mean absolutely nothing to him or he had nothing to do with in his face and in his program's face on a daily, like Nate brought up with Sharon Moore and Paige Shiver and all of that situation. The whole reason why he is here, like you mentioned, Nate, is because A, he is a good football coach. B, he's a great human being. And C, they needed both of those things desperately in Ann Arbor, given how things ended up last year. His number one job, Zach, in my opinion, isn't beating Ohio State in year number one. His number one job is actually reestablishing a culture there at Michigan, because that culture, in my opinion, was broken. Agree or disagree?
I totally agree. And I think that's why, some people might get upset that he's saying, I get the rivalry. I feel like in some ways he's saying the right thing, but he knows deep down that there's something bigger at stake for Michigan, and that's its soul, which is what they need to rectify, right? We've seen everything that's come out of the NCAA, and yes, the NCAA is gutless. We have shirts at Big Ten Huddle that say the NCAA stinks. They should have blown them to smithereens back in 2023. They didn't, and so we got to live with the consequences of that. But the reality is that program was a shell of itself in terms of its soul. And Kyle Whittingham is the type of guy you get, not just to put good fundamentals, not to just get a guy to make Bryce Underwood a better quarterback. You get him to reestablish who they're supposed to be from a morality standpoint, an ethics standpoint. And that's not to say that he won't coach them hard. I expect Michigan to be in playoff contention this year because I think he can coach these guys up. But let's be real. His job is to set the foundation again across the board. And if that's your main focus, you cannot just focus on Ohio State, which is what Jim Harbaugh got to do, which is what Lloyd Carr got to do. Certainly not what Rich Rod Brady Hoke did, but he was incompetent at it. And it's certainly not what Rich Rod did. But Kyle Whittingham can't focus his sole attention there yet.
Nate.
Yeah, he's inheriting a mess. I mean, let's be honest, it's a mess. We know we had a lot to talk about for several weeks there, and we're blowing up with all these shows and all these topics, and we appreciate Michigan handing those to us and their coaches because it made for good banter. But there's a lot to clean up there, and he's going to have to walk around with a broom and a scooper for quite some time before they can just focus on the rivalry. And last year was a disappointment for them. The year before was a disappointment. I mean, we're talking, almost 10 losses in 2 seasons. That's not where they want to be, and that's not where we are at. And if they are going to compete with us and create this rivalry again, they're going to have to get things right, and that starts at the top. And they're going to have to replace leadership from day one with this guy. And he's talking about how he's ready for this rivalry. This guy was going to retire a couple of months ago and was ready to hit the golf course and the sailboats, and now he's going to lead a resurgence of one of the biggest programs in the country. We'll see how it goes, man. I do think he's an upgrade over Sharon Moore as far as the coach goes. He certainly has a better coaching pedigree and a better resume. We all know Coach Moore was kind of gifted that job and probably didn't really deserve it, as evidenced by how he handled it. But there's still a lot of things to be done before he can focus on the rivalry, as Zach mentioned, and we'll see how that goes. But Ryan Day certainly understands the rivalry at this point, and he's certainly focused on it. I think he has been, maybe for the last several years, but he knows what's at stake, and it's his job and the program's direction as a whole.
Absolutely. Now, again, I want to stress this over and over and over again because I want Michigan man to know that when I say these things, I'm just spitting the truth from my perspective. I think Kyle Whittingham is a good football coach. I think he's a great human being. I really do. I think all those things. He might be the most likable Michigan coach since Lloyd Carr, in all honesty. But you coaching my rival now, bro. So yeah, that gives me every reason to not like you, I guess, in a roundabout way. Out of respect, right? You got to respect the rivalry, of course. But I heard this. I listened to the entire interview. There's so much more. He goes into rebuilding culture. He talks about that. He talks about how the cupboard's not bare, that there's plenty of talent here. I think Michigan is a top 12 talented team in the country this year. They don't have top 12 depth, however. I do think that is going to be an issue for them if they endure some injuries. And I believe Michigan will go as far this season as Underwood will take them as a second-year starter at quarterback for that team. Zach, your final thoughts on those things and on the team up north?
Yeah, I mean, so as much as I've said, I don't think Whittingham gets the rivalry or he can't pay attention. I still think the threat level for Michigan towards Ohio State is much higher than it was this past year. For one, Underwood is a sophomore, and yes, he had his struggles a year ago, but you have an established coach who knows how to work around run-based quarterbacks, right? He had Dan Pierre last year at Utah, right? So he knows how to work that. And I agree with you. The depth may not be where you want it, but this might be, from at least a potential standpoint, the most explosive offense that they could have from a personnel standpoint. You look at the receivers they got. They have Marshall and Hyder at running back. And obviously, if you see a second-year progression in Underwood, this could be one of the most dangerous offenses we've seen in quite some time for Michigan. Now, dangerous doesn't mean consistent, and that's, I think, probably the biggest thing you have to figure out. But offensively, they've got real pieces. They've got real weapons. And I think the question, again, is, you mentioned it really well, is depth and what do their lines of scrimmage look like on offense and defense? That was, you look at 2021 to 2023, we can talk about Connor Stallions all you want. They were really, really good up front. And that's where I have questions for them this upcoming year. If you look at their losses this past year, that's where they got dominated on the line of scrimmage.
Nate.
Yeah, there's no doubt. That's where this team was different this year as opposed to the previous years. They just dominated on the offensive and defensive line. There's just no doubt about that. They still had some good games last year where they ran the football. Jordan Marshall, to me, had some explosive games, and they had a couple other running backs that were impressive at times. But the quarterback is where this whole thing is going to be proven. Can he get better? Kyle Whittingham, is he a guy that is turned quarterbacks into NFL caliber prospects? He's had some success, but that's where the rubber's going to hit the road. Is if Bright Underwood is much better than he was last year, and they weren't as good at the line of scrimmage, and he was bad at times. I mean, let's just be honest. Almost 1-to-1 ratio, throwing interceptions to touchdowns, and looked disinterested at times, was fighting with other players on the sidelines. That's not what you want to see from your $12 million freshman quarterback. So he's going to have to fix a lot of things, both internally in the program and then externally on the field. And that's certainly going to be a challenge. Luckily, they don't have quite as tough a schedule as we do, but certainly have some games they can lose that they're gonna see.
I haven't got the opportunity to fact check this, but I read that while he was the head coach at Utah, Kyle Whittingham never developed a quarterback who was drafted in the NFL. Now, Alex Smith gets credited to Urban. I haven't fact checked it. Maybe there was one that but that's what I heard or what I read, and I thought, boy, oh boy, if that's true, that's not a good thing coming into this situation with Underwood. But Troy says, call me Thomas, talking about doubting Thomas from the scriptures. I need to see Underwood look competent before I start worrying about that offense. Whittingham don't have a track record of developing QBs. Need to see them nail scarred hands. Gotcha. Okay. That's really interesting. That's really interesting to say. Underwood's incredibly talented, but he was incredibly inaccurate last year.
Yes.
That one thing alone, if he can improve his accuracy, I think changes the entire dynamic for that offense if he has time to throw the football, in my opinion.
I agree.
$5 super chat, $4.99 from DK in the hizzy. Hi, Big Ten tourney champ here. What is this football you speak of? We are unfamiliar with such happenings in West Lala. West Lala for West Lafayette. Oh my gosh. You guys just worry about, hey, DK, I got Purdue going all the way to the Final Four and maybe even to the championship game. How about that?
Whoa.
How about that?
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's bold. That is bold.
Yes. In fact, I think I have Purdue beating Wisconsin in the grade 8 out of all things. Like how did that happen? So
there you go.
Yeah.
I have two brackets. One is a real bracket. My other one is my homer bracket. My championship game, Ohio State over Michigan. That's my homer bracket.
Oh my gosh. Oh, DK says if we win it all, I will lose consciousness. Listen, DK, we got to have you on and watch the game live with you, because I want to see all of this. And Schrock, Sean coming in with a little heat. Diebler owns Purdue. That's actually a true statement. He's 3-0 somehow.
Yes.
If he just beat Michigan while he's at it.
Could you imagine the state of Indiana if Indiana wins football and Purdue wins basketball?
And Notre Dame wins nothing.
Yeah, that would be great. And Matt Painter, he is a good coach, but he certainly, had some issues in the tournament. He's made the Sweet 16
Made a championship game a couple
number
years
of
ago.
times. Yeah, he's made the Elite Eight twice. He's made the championship game in 2023, 24, but he's yet to win it all. Is this the best team he's ever had? I would probably say no.
Well, he doesn't have the best player he's ever had. That was Zach Edey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I think that there's something special about this Purdue team that I really, really like. And I think they're actually more cohesive as a group of players. And whatever happened after that 4-4 finish to the regular season, that team that played in Chicago in those 4 games was the team that everybody thought Purdue was going to be at the beginning when they were ranked number 1 preseason. So I'm kind of rooting for him for DK. I am.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Ohio State's going to see Purdue in the Big Ten or in an NCAA national championship game, but that would be great to see nonetheless. To see Purdue do something for the Big Ten. It's been 25 or 6 years now since the Big Ten's won an NCAA tournament.
2000, Michigan State, 2000.
That's way too long.
Yeah, technically Maryland won it in 2002, but they were in the ACC.
ACC, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to topic number 2. All right. So I have another audio clip for you. This one is Austin Ward. You all know Austin Ward. He's a beat writer, been on the beat for, 6-7 years, maybe longer now. He used to be on Tennessee's beat before he joined Ohio State's beat.
Yes, and his dad was before him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And anyways, he's on 97.1 The Fan, which is the local ESPN sports radio affiliate here in Columbus, Ohio. Listen to it all the time. And he's talking about the first week of practice last week. Now, Ohio State does not have spring practice this week. They're on spring break. It's kind of weird. They have 2 practices, and then they send the kids home for a week, and then they bring them back, and they crush them for 3 straight weeks. That's what they do, what the coaching staff does for spring football. But here's the thing. Everybody's talking about DK always does this. Swear jar. Anyways, he's everybody's talking about Legend Bay, right? The do it all freshman. He's electric with the football in his hands. They got him in the running back room. They're sending him out wide at wide receiver on 7-on-7s, and a lot of people are like, this kid's going to be awesome. He's got all the buzz going on. But he's just a freshman. Okay? Can freshmen have good first years in college football? Absolutely, right? We've seen it before. But Jeremiah Smith, anyone? Like, that was a pretty good freshman year.
Bo Jackson
last year. Pretty good freshman year. Yeah. Who called that one? This guy. By the way, Sincere Johnson's my new you need to know who this guy is, linebacker from Glenville. But everybody's talking about Legend Bay. And I just want to pump the brakes. We brought in somebody else who's experienced, who played in the SEC, who was a game wrecker for Alabama up front on the defensive line. And, oh, yeah, by the way, apparently this guy is a monster. He's an absolute monster, and he's an absolute don't get in his way. Listen to the story. Listen to what Austin Ward says about James Smith from Alabama. I think this is going to get all of you really, really excited. Check this out.
Austin, you were at the Woody today. What were some of your biggest takeaways, and what is burning in your mind the most right now about the Buckeye football team?
Still trying to recover and get my heart rate back down from the intimidation factor of being in close proximity to an angry James Smith.
Ooh, new guy.
Number three. Interesting number choice for someone playing down there in the nose position. It had been already told to me by multiple people, some on the coaching staff, some not on the coaching staff. You can figure out who those people are if you want. It's not that difficult probably, but said he's a very serious human being. Said, I'll smile when we start winning.
All right.
Which sounded like a threat. And I think it might have been. I said that would have been a really interesting thing for him to say. We used to have those February days where the early enrollees or the transfer guys talk to the media. It didn't happen this year. Not upset about it, because I know that some of it is a matter of there being 51 new faces on this roster, a number that I bet some people are already getting tired of hearing about from me, you, or Ryan Day, or anybody else in that building. But, more important for them to get to know each other than maybe the media to get to know them.
Okay. Vader's on the job. He's going to be making some contacts with his insiders over there at the Woody. I sent a text out today and said, hey, what do you know about this guy? Is this true? Apparently this is an absolute monster and an absolute animal of a human being. We are going to miss. I thought we were going to miss losing K-Mac up the middle. I think K-Mac and listen, I love me some Caden Curry. I thought he had a great senior year. I thought Caden Curry had a great senior year. But K-Mac is what really made that defensive line go, in my opinion. And I think he deserves to be a first-round draft pick. Call me a homer, whatever, that's fine. And I'm more worried about trying to replace that on that defense than just about anything else, including the linebackers, by the way. Because if you don't have a good up-the-middle defensive surge and ability to stop the run up the middle, I don't care how good your linebackers are, they still going to get 5-6 yards on you a pop. So hearing this got my little Buckeye heart pumping. I was like, oh, baby, that's what I need to hear. I need a game wrecker. Is that not the best quote you've heard coming out of the first week of spring practice? Is, I'll smile when we start winning. If my defensive tackle tells me that, that's A+ in my book. I want that guy mean, mad, and ticked off. Zach, your response from hearing this news about our new defensive lineman in the middle of this defense coming from Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on the nose in saying that this position is probably the most important position to replace because of the impact it has on the defensive line and particularly stopping the run, but also getting middle pressure. And K-Mac was awesome last year. And I mean, you go back and watch guys like Todd McShay and others, and as much praise as they heaped on Styles and Reese and Downs, at one point McShay said that it's Matt McDonald who is the one who is affecting everything on the defense. And so in a lot of ways, he might be the biggest loss, which is saying a whole ton, because Downs is maybe the best safety prospect we've ever had. Reese and Styles are going to be top 10 picks, most likely. Maybe both of them might be top 5 picks. And the reality is the defensive tackle position is the biggest need. And if James Smith is as good or dare I say better than K-Mac, which is kind of crazy to think about, it is a very good sign for a defense that is losing so much off of it and has a lot of question marks.
Yeah, that's that's interesting to say. Troy, pretty soon they'll be calling Ohio State D-tackle U. 4 guys in the league over the past 3 years. Yes, let's not sit here. I know when we talk about Larry Johnson, right? We all think about the Bosas, Chase Young, right? Zach Harrison. The list goes on and on about all the great defensive ends we've had. Let's not sleep on the great tackles that Larry Johnson has produced in the middle of that defense. And dare I say, maybe they've been even more productive recently than the ends. Nate.
Yeah. I got to be very honest. I was nervous as all get up about Tyleik Williams moving on the year previous. He was just such a disruptor,
Great
such
point.
a dominator, such a guy that lived in the backfield. And I liked Caden McDonald. I did. I thought he was a good player. I thought he would come in and have a good season. But did I think he was better than Tyleik Williams? I didn't. But he proved me wrong. He had a more productive year than Tyleik Williams had when we won the national championship with 65 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks, including 2 forced fumbles, and was the defensive lineman of the year in the Big Ten for a reason. He was just all over the place, and certainly proved me wrong by being even better than Tyleik Williams possibly. So to hear that these folks are impressed with, it's day 2, 2 days of practice. So let's not sell the farm just yet. But I'm glad that that's what we're hearing, because that's probably, once again, one of my most nervous points is the D tackle position. The good thing I think we have going for us there is that James is a guy that's not a freshman. He's been at Alabama for a couple of years. Wasn't exactly, knock your socks off productive, but got some playing time and did some good things. And then we also went out and got John Walker, who is a big behemoth of a man at 6'4", over 320 pounds. So I like him with James Smith. And then also you add Will Smith Jr. and Edric Houston. Well, there's 4 guys that I think can really make this thing work in the middle of our defensive line. So, last year I was extremely nervous about our depth. And I was like, what if Caden McDonald gets hurt? What if Houston goes down? What are we going to do? Well, this year I think we have, more depth with the addition of Smith and with the addition of John Walker. And that makes me happy. And I certainly think it all starts in the middle, because if you can stop the run and make it team one-dimensional, you are winning with what you want to do on defense. And we certainly have talent at the linebacker position. I think the defensive backfield will be just fine with the guys we got in the portal and the youngsters that will be stepping up, not to mention, our veteran in Matthews. So that those middle guys are what's going to be what makes our team go. And I like the guys we brought in. I like the depth.
And you brought up Johnny Walker, as I like to call him, Ohio State alcoholic's new favorite name to the Buckeye roster. He's dropped, as Tyler points out, he's dropped down 20-some pounds. He's down to 303 right now. So he's going to be quicker off the snap. They were definitely working on that. He was obviously one of the reasons why he came to Ohio State was to get in that that bodybuilding weight conditioning program, so he could drop some weight and get on some good muscle. This is going to be a really, really good defensive line interior. Mm-hmm. The question is on the outsides, in all honesty. And, you got Kenyatta Jackson Jr. coming back. I don't know if you got to watch Thursday's press conference with Julian Sain, but before Julian Sain came to the podium, it was actually Kenyatta Jackson Jr. who came to the podium, and you could tell he did not want to be there. Like, there was 3 or 4 times he was like, I don't like talking in front of people. Like he's one of those guys. I think he's going to let his play do the talking, which I am absolutely fine with, because his production from the outside, I think, is key this year for Ohio State. Him coming back, he could have went to the NFL draft, probably would have got picked up, I don't know, day 3 somewhere. Maybe if he had a great workout or pro day, or maybe he sneaks into the 3rd round, day 2. But more than likely, it's going to be a 3rd-day guy. That's why he came back. And if he can have a double-digit sack kind of year, coupled with what we're hearing from the DTs, my gosh, we're reloading again, Zach. Mm-hmm. And what makes it all exciting to me is Matt Patricia, year number 2, can sit back and start to dial things up. What have you guys been talking about this offseason with Buckeyes defense and Matt Patricia coming back?
We honestly haven't talked a ton about it yet, but I think the big question that I have, and I'll just speak personally, is what does the defense look like without his chess pieces in Downs and Styles? Because in a lot and Reese for that matter, what do they look like now that he has, good safeties? Not, I dare not say generational because that gets thrown around too often. But I think the best safety prospect we've seen at Ohio State in 20 years, at least, right? So what do you see out of Patricia's defense? What can he do? I honestly am more pessimistic going into this season because of the schedule. But that being said, if that defensive line can unleash Patricia and his creativity, then I think it doesn't matter at that point how difficult the schedule is. Because if you can control and dictate up front, I don't care who your safeties are, right? If you don't have time to throw, it's over. And that's I think the big question to me is you have an elite mind as your defensive coordinator. To me, the big question is, do you have the personnel to unlock and unleash? So if James Smith hits, and you asked us this pre-show, is James Smith the most important transfer? 100%. Because unless if you get Caleb Downs' twin, you're not going to replace what you had on the back in the back end. Like that was probably the best back seven in the country last year, if not the best, top three. How do you mitigate that? Pressure. And that's what you need. You need pressure, not just from the edges like you were talking about, but pressure up front, getting in a quarterback's face up the middle. And so I think that to me, if this defensive line hits, you're talking about being able to unlock and unleash what Patricia can do.
What you got, Nate?
Yeah, and that's to me why I think Grady is going to be so crucial to all of this. Kenyatta has proven it. Didn't have double-digit sacks last year, but I think he finished with like 6.5 and proved he can get to the quarterback because he certainly got back there more than 6.5 times. But, can Grady become that guy that we need him to be? He's going to be opposite Jackson. He's going to have times where he's got one-on-ones and he's going to have to get back there and make things happen. And he certainly has the pedigree. He certainly has the talent level, but we haven't seen it from him yet. And that's why we talked about it last hour in our show with Sean and EJ Underwood, that I felt like he's probably the most important guy as far as who we need to step up in this year's defensive, because we don't have Styles, as Zach mentioned, and Arvell Reese that we can just put on the edge and use as a situational pass rusher. We're going to have our front four pretty much get home. I mean, I like our linebackers, but we just don't. Arvell Reese is gone, and there's nobody really like him. I mean, the guy's an alien. I don't know if there's another human being like him. And as we saw how fast Sonny Styles was, we could use him in all sorts of ways as well. So I do think Grady is going to be a dude that's very important to us. Now we do have, we did kind of get an insurance policy with him with bringing in the other kid from Alabama and Quay Rousseau as well. So that's good. But really, this is the kid that we went out and recruited. He's the one that we brought in to be a dominator, and hopefully he's going to be able to live up to the billing.
Yeah, good to see Mello in the chat. Mello says defensive line will be nasty. I said it exactly like he spelled it, my man. No.
As well done.
I think this defensive line is, like, I think you said it very well, Zach. It's crucial. It's crucial this season that this defensive line steps up. Don McClure says, need Zion Grady to step up. Nate, yep, you mentioned it. Another name a lot of people are talking about, as Mello brings up as well, here is Epi. I think he'll be a redshirt freshman this year, if I'm not mistaken. Usually, if a kid's going to flash, he'll flash by year number 2. So we need to see that as well. We brought up linebackers a little bit, and I basically said it doesn't matter if we would have had Sonny, and Arville back next year, if the defensive line can't hold up their end of the bargain, they're still going to be able to run on us here. You know, Ryan Day had the opportunity to mention what position group he was concerned about the most. He was basically asked the same question twice. Never one time has he brought up the linebacker room. He's not talked about it at all. I don't think he has to, because the little animal is there. The Brian Hartline 2.0, the Brian Hartline of the defense, if you will. I have zero concerns about the linebacker room. I think it's deep. I think it is very athletic. I don't know who's all going to come out of the linebacker room and fill those roles, but I have zero doubt that they're going to be great because James Laurinaitis is there. My money is on Peyton Pierce to be the leader of that room right now, but I can be talked into Riley Pettijohn. I can be talked into Sincere Johnson coming in as a freshman and getting and maybe working into the starting lineup by the end of the year, which has been my prediction. I look at that linebacker room, I see nasty written all over it, to steal a word from my buddy Mello. What's your idea on the linebacker room going into this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crazy to think that there's no concern when you're going to lose two. At this point, I'm just going to say 2 top 10 picks because that's what they are, right? Styles and Reese are phenomenal players, but I think Peyton Pierce showed that he is at the very least incredibly solid and he's dependable. And then you do I think I'm trying to remember the statistics, but I think in terms of recruiting, I think we have recruited at linebacker the best the past couple of years than we've had in the past 10 years.
Oh, it's not even close. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember I always want to say Marshawn Lattimore, but that's not who it is. Raekwon McMillan was the last 5-star linebacker we got before.
And wasn't Browning? Wasn't Browning?
Browning. Yeah, Browning and McMillan were the last 2 5-stars before we got Pettijohn. And so we got him, we got Johnson. I don't think Johnson was a 5-star necessarily, but like high 4-star type of guy. Like you're seeing more elite recruiting in that position. And so at the very least, you have a lot of potential. The big question is, will they hit? Which I think they will. If Ryan Day is not concerned about it, then I'm not concerned about it. And you have Laurinaitis, who is a budding young coach who is just on fire right now.
Yeah. Question for you, Zach, real fast before we come to you, Nate, to talk about the linebacking room. Zach, what is your biggest question mark on the defense this year?
I think that the secondary is a question. And honestly, as much as we're talking about the defensive line and how it could be elite, it's a lot of could be. And so, it's March. Everybody's saying could be. But there have been years, I think 2017, 2018 was like, this defensive line is going to be so good. And then, they go in against Oklahoma and you're like, why are you not getting pressure? To be fair, Nick Bosa got his fair share of pressure on Baker. But like, you're like, I thought this was going to be. So I just have lots of questions about how consistent the D line is going to be and how dynamic the secondary can be. Those are my questions, because you lost so many good pieces in that back seven, and you lost K-Mac. And so we can talk all the day long about how elite these units could be, and then you pair that with who they're playing. Like they got to go to USC, they've got to play Oregon, they've got to play at Indiana. I mean, those are 3 really, really good offenses. I don't think they played an offense as good until the Big Ten championship game a year ago. They've got to play 3 of them, and you're not even talking about at Texas. So I just think the schedule is we're going from like a 200 level schedule to like a grad school last year master's program schedule. And it's, that concerns me as much as the question marks.
Nader, your thoughts on the linebacker room, buddy?
Yeah, as Zach mentioned, my biggest concern is our schedule. that's definitely my biggest concern because the road schedule and just the upgrade in it from last year. I mean, I'm the biggest Buckeye homer in the world, but we did coast for a while there in the middle of the season, and we don't need to apologize for it. We played who was on there and kicked the crap out of most of them, and so what? But it's going to be tougher this year for sure. And I like the linebacker room. I do. And I like Riley and I like Peyton Pierce. And I thought Peyton played really well in limited duty. He obviously wasn't a starter last year, but when he got in, he made things happen. He caused some turnovers. He made an interception. I believe he forced a fumble, and I like that. I was impressed with what I saw out of him, just with his playmaking ability and his production with kind of limited action. But some of these other guys, they didn't play a whole lot. But I do think, as you mentioned, the key is the depth. If these guys are going to push each other, iron sharpens iron, right?
Right.
So there's going to be competition, and I feel like he's going to put whoever is the best on the field, and I think Sincere Johnson will certainly push both those dudes because he is a beast, and I think he wants to play early.
So, Nate, Zach, your final thoughts on Ohio State this spring. What is one thing you're watching this spring, something you're hoping to see, find out, a question mark that gets answered, anything going into the spring about Ohio State that you're definitely keeping your eye on?
I think for me, it comes down to the lines of scrimmage. So I want to see how dynamic this defensive line can be. And I want to see how sturdy this offensive line can be. Because you go back to the Indiana and Miami losses, the two teams in the national championship game, they were able to exploit weaknesses on both of those position groups. And so I want to see those two lines, those two position groups, and I want to see, have they grown? Have they become more dynamic? Have they become, particularly the offensive line, have they become more reliable? And I do want to see the depth of that defensive line because, again, that cures a lot of ills. Like, I care a little bit about the safeties for sure. Like, I want to see those safeties play, but you can get away with mediocre to just good safety play if you have dynamic defensive line play.
Sure. About an hour before I came upstairs here, before Sean, Nate, and EJ came on their show live, I heard that this will be the final year for Kirk Herbstreit on game day. He is retiring from game day after this year. I don't know if he's retiring from calling games, if he's going to just move to Amazon Prime because they're paying him basically everything you could possibly want as a human being to call one game a week that no one watches. But he's known for game day. Now, Buckeye fans know him for being a bad quarterback, and then being a radio host here in Columbus, Ohio, before he ever got the gig with ESPN. And then when he got the gig with ESPN, that's when the rift happened between Ohio State fans and Kirk Herbstreit, because he went on game day and he was over the top professional and wouldn't say, like, kind of was more critical of Ohio State than any other program on game day. And Ohio State fans took exception to that and started calling him out on his radio program for it. Yeah. And things got heated. And of course, the whole lunatic fringe, which he coined for Ohio State fans, happened. I'm interested, Zach, as an Ohio State fan, your view or your initial reaction to Kirk Herbstreit saying, "This is going to be my final year of game day"?
To be honest, I'm glad because I feel like game day has become a shell of itself.
Nice. Okay.
Um, I I understand why Ohio State, like rabid Ohio State fans, are frustrated with Kirk. I generally like him. Like I think he's a really good color analyst. I think he's really good at his job. Do I think sometimes he's almost too respectful? Yes, but I understand at being on a Big Ten exclusive show and being like, I got to put my scarlet and gray glasses away. Um, I understand that struggle way more now than I ever did 2 or 3 years ago. So I get it, but I honestly I'm glad because if it means I never have to watch that show and hear Desmond Howard cackle ever again, it is great because I like hearing Kirk's thoughts on the game. I think he's a great spokesman for college football. Desmond Howard is a tool and he shouldn't be anywhere near the sport. So good. Kirk's leaving. I don't ever have to watch again. That's my thought.
Yeah, I would be happier if you told us Desmond Howard was retiring. He brings absolutely nothing to that show, and I'm not just saying that because I'm an Ohio State fan. I mean, I give people credit when it's due, but what does Desmond provide to the game day
Comic relief.
experience? I
But
guess
he's not funny.
He's a jester. He's a jester.
moron.
That's all he is. He's a modern day
moron.
jester.
He's a moron, and he doesn't know anything about the sport. He doesn't provide insight about the games that are going to happen. He just picks against Ohio State and then does the stupid cackle that makes everybody turn the channel. So, but I'm not surprised that Herbie is hanging it up. I mean, think about the travel that guy has been doing and the miles he's logged on a plane with himself and his dog for the past how many years. I kind of am surprised he lasted this long, and I think Lee Corso retiring last year kind of hit him hard and kind of led to this. But his kids are getting older. He's getting older. Heck, I'm getting older. Father Time's undefeated, and I think all this travel going back and forth, it was kind of fun for him in the beginning. But as a person who used to travel for a living, I can tell you I did it for 17 years, and the first 4, maybe 5 were kind of fun, and the last 12 was horrendous. So I'm not surprised that he's going to give up that part of his life.
All right, we got 1 minute before the end of the show. Mika, do you have your tinfoil hat ready? Why is he hanging it up? Because the college football is going to have a new commissioner soon.
Ooh.
Take that one and run with it, Mika.
Interesting.
You know I love good college football conspiracy theories. Herbie, as much as an Ohio State fan, he irritates me sometimes. I do think Herbstreit would make a great college commissioner because he loves the sport of college football.
Yeah. If he has power, I mean, there has to be someone that can come in and, understands the game and the rules and then enforces the rules because we have none of that right now. And that's the biggest problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. Zach, thanks so much for joining the program this evening. Tell everybody one more time where they can find you.
Yeah, Big Ten Huddle on YouTube. Definitely check us out. We are going live tomorrow night. We're actually doing what we call Around the Big Ten. So we'll have a few different guests on, and we'll be talking about several different things, including who's going to hit their over and under win totals. They just came out on FanDuel. Yep. So we're gonna talk about that along with who's going to get fired first in terms of Big Ten coaches.
Luke Fickell, and he's going to come to Ohio State.
It could be Fick. My money's on Loxley, but
I think he's got a pretty good dynamic quarterback. It might help get him to close to 6-6.
It's very possible.
And no one cares there too. That helps him.
Yeah.
We remember they 5 million in ticket sales last year.
Yeah, Maryland basically. You could go to a Maryland football game for $18 last year. We looked it up, did the math. It was
That's
$18
crazy.
of the average ticket price.
Mm.
That's
Well,
that's low.
Penn State got even cheaper. I bought tickets to Penn State, Nebraska, $11,
Woo!
and it was on the 20. I think it was 20 or 30 yard line.
This was after they gave up.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was later in the season. Yeah.
I mean, they destroyed Nebraska in that game, but yeah.
Since you live in Pennsylvania, and we're in overtime now, so I got to throw this out at you.
Uh-oh.
I'm calling Penn State literally Iowa State 2.0. That's who they are this year.
Yeah,
They are the Penn State Cyclones. That's what I'm calling them.
that's fair.
Or the Iowa State Nittany Lions, whatever you want to call them. I think Penn State fans are going to be incredibly upset this year.
I would not be surprised. So JR and I were talking about this on Sunday, and I think people see the schedule and they think 10-2. There's an upset or two out there for them though.
That's 10-2 with James Franklin teams.
Yeah.
They do not have a James Franklin team.
Yeah, they do not have they have some good talent, and like Rocco Becht is a gamer. But I agree with you. And actually, so the game that I think might be kind of the game that sobers everybody up at Northwestern, it is the inaugural game at the new Ryan Field, October 2nd.
Yeah. And then they have to play USC the following week at home, and then Michigan. So that starts a little bit of a trifecta of potential losses, but it does help. It does help to start the season with Marshall, Temple, and Buffalo.
I think one of the most interesting teams in the Big Ten this year is actually Northwestern.
Yep.
With Chip Kelly there, play calling, I am fascinated with how that will look.
Well,
there in Evanston.
What Aiden Childs do you get? So college football with Sam, he's going to be on the show tomorrow night. He picked Northwestern to go 8-4, which I was like, I don't know how you can do that. But this is also the same guy that projected Indiana to win the national championship last year. So, like, I've never actually been on a show with Sam. I'm really excited to get to pick his brain. But Chip Kelly and Aiden Childs, like, Childs is a really big question mark. But that Chip Kelly offense thing is real. And yeah.
I think he's kind of built for the Chip Kelly offense, and he's going to have Mr. Neuheisel there helping him out, coaching that kid up, and I think it could work.
Yeah,
they're incredibly interesting. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the thumbs up on your way out if you haven't already. We're going to go over to Patreon. Join us over on Patreon if you're not a member. The links in the discussion below. Nate and I are going to head on over there, and we're going to have a great time. Give us about 4 minutes to set it all up. Thanks for joining us, Zach.
Yes, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
As always, everybody, OH!
I-O!
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.